Be with you. Thank you for being up and early and in for the action. There has never been a time when the theme of information dominance has been more important to our future and to the security of our nation. And if the challenges of today are not enough for you, then the promise of the future and the additional opportunities and challenges that are before us should excite you and get you ready for the conversation that we're about to have today. The world is changing at such a dramatic pace, and of course the challenge is that what brought you here will not necessarily get you there. And oftentimes our expertise at the way things are done today becomes the impediment for us to think about how to address the future and take advantage of what's out there. There was an article in Wired magazine a little while back that talked about how do you successfully spot innovation. And the punchline of the story was you have to be able to think differently. You have to be able to question your assumptions, and you have to look through a new lens in order to see the trends and futures that are before us. Even more recently, the Wall Street Journal had an article that talked about what is the most disruptive force in technology today. And the answer was you and me, and our expectations and demands for what the computing environment that we run our businesses and our personal lives will be like. And gone are the days where the IT leader can just give the device to the individual and tell them to go off and do their work. A gazillion years ago when I joined the Federal Service, the best gear by far was at my office. By the time I retired, that may not have been true. I may have been carrying better devices in my pocket than that which was offered to me in my office. If you look at the way the world is changing, this radical pace of service-oriented solutions and Web 2.0 and social media, power of cloud computing, the power and peril of mobility, what does it mean to be connected to anybody, anytime, anywhere to get your job done? The importance of common platforms, the importance of a common security architecture, the promise of JIE, the need to let go of personal control. All of these are creating a fascinating moment of opportunity and inflection for us. And if that wasn't enough for you, you couple that with the tough financial times that we all face together. The fiscal constraints that are going to be on these gentlemen in the years going forward and how they're going to have to operate with that. And the challenge, of course, is that when times are tough financially, we tend to hunker down on the things that we know best. And the things that we know best are oftentimes the things that we've known the longest. Sometimes the things that we've known the longest are indeed a part of our future. But sometimes the legacy things that we've known the longest are the things that need to be retired and need to be replaced by the new ideas and new ways of doing business. Lord Rutherford, the father of nuclear physics, once said, "We had no money, so we had to think." And with that thought in mind, I'd like to introduce you to a panel of thought leaders, gentlemen with tough jobs that are truly leaders in the field of information dominance, and they have a lot to share with you. And so the way we intend to run this morning is I'm going to go down the line here and introduce each one of them, give them a few minutes to talk to you about issues on their mind, things that they'd like you to be thinking about as we go forward through the conversation. Once we go down the line, I'll offer a couple of questions to get the questions and answers going. And then, of course, it's your moment of opportunity. So if you have not done it yet, you know the drill by now. Text or email your questions. And later on in the panel, there'll be the voice of God coming down and asking all of us questions together, and then we'll give the panelists a moment to wrap up at the end of our thing. I'm delighted to be on stage with such an august group. They have fabulous bios, and I am not going to read them to you. But I suggest you Google them, because each of them have amazing resumes and interesting careers, and it's important to know the experience that they bring to the table today. I'm going to start immediately to my right with Mr. Terry Halverson, Department of Navy Chief Information Officer. Terry, welcome to this morning's panel.
Thanks, Dave. I think I would open up with a couple thoughts, and I think the key word that we want to think about today is balance. All of the people to my right will talk much better than I about requirements, operational capabilities, technical capabilities. I think they're the right people to do that. But as Dave said, we are in a tough fiscal environment. So there's going to need to be a balance to this that answers some interesting questions. And one of the questions that is prime in the DC area right now is, what are you not going to spend money on? And that gets to one of the questions that Dave brought up. So it's very easy to decide, I'm going to keep doing the things I'm doing, spend my money, I know what that is, I kind of know where I can make some trim around the edges. Well, trim around the edges isn't going to get us where we need to go. We're going to have to cut some systems. The counter to that, though, many of you probably heard Admiral Harris's talk yesterday, and he talked about all the demands he has in the Pacific area refocusing. I think you will hear many of the similar demands from O'Gortney today. We've got to figure out a way to meet those demands. We're going to have to figure out how to meet them in a much smarter way than we have in the past. We're going to have to get balance in where we decide to customize for the military, where we can live with commercial products. That may not be the perfect answer for us, but it may be that balanced answer that says we can afford it. We're going to have to balance between where do we take risk and where do we invest new money. We're going to have a higher bill for cybersecurity, and that's right. How do we determine, though, what's the right bill? How do you balance out what does the next dollar in security buy you against what it's protecting and what it's costing you to get there? All of those things have to go through the process as we decide what's going to be the strategy, not just for the Department of Navy, but as we jointly work to get to a JIE strategy that is affordable, balanced, and sustainable in the future. So I'll leave it as the watchword today is how do we balance all of the things we're going to talk about and pass it on down.
Thank you, Tarek. Our next panelist today is Rear Admiral Bob Day, Assistant Commandant for C4IT, Coast Guard CIO and Commander Coast Guard Cyber Command. Welcome, Bob.
Thanks, Dave. Terry, you hit the nail on the head, so let me just move beyond this balance piece. And as I move into my 5th year as being the CIO and the Cyber Commander, and particularly these challenging years, the phone call just before I came down is, okay, 15 budget went back with OMB settlement and say, you need to come up with another $20 million of IT savings. And it's like, we've been doing this year after year after year for the past 3 or 4 years, and where are we going to get it from? And, you know, they keep looking at each of these programs as individual, you know, mobility is an individual program, virtualization is an individual program, security is an individual program, and the problem is they're so intertwined that you can't treat each one of them individually. Taking a cut in one impacts across the other. And I don't think we've figured that out. You know, before you can mobilize, you need to virtualize, and before you do that, you need to have that security architecture in place. And it's taking time to get people to understand that that piece is very, very important. And then the key problem is most of our organizations, we've been recapitalizing our capabilities, our operating capabilities, many times out of operating budget, particularly on the IT side, while we use our capital budget to buy those large things, particularly in the Coast Guard, new national security cutters, new aircraft, new offshore patrol cutters, and not using a capital investment environment for IT, which is finally catching up with us. And I think we're going to hit that whirlwind here fairly soon, that they're going to realize that you do need a CapEx budget to refurbish these systems. Many of them have been out there for a decade. Looking forward, you know, the Coast Guard's just released its Arctic strategy, and you talk about a need for IT and communications in that arena where we're going to see expanded operations over the next couple of years. They're expecting over 30 ships to do a Northwest Passage this summer. Ecotourism up in that area is just exploding. And so what happens when we have a cruise ship disaster up in that region that I have very, very little communications capability and IT capability up there to respond to it? And then our cyber strategy will be out here in the next probably several months, April, May timeframe. And it's the same thing that we're all looking at. How do we defend ourselves? And being a member of .mil, I'm following the lead from US Cyber. But also, I have a whole other piece, is maritime critical infrastructure. Looking into that arena, and particularly those systems out there that really have the ability to take and really hurt this nation. If you close the port of LALB for 3 days, Sam Walmart has no Sonys or Samsungs on their storefronts, and say the American public goes nuts when that happens. So these are the areas that are converging for us. The challenge I see, particularly because of the buzzsaw of the budget environment, is we can no longer recapitalize out of operating budget because the operating budget has been cut so thin, and we're going to have to figure out how to get these programs put back into place to give us these new capabilities.
All right, thank you. Brigadier General Kevin Nally, Director of C4 of the United States Marine Corps and Department of the Navy Deputy Chief Information Officer for the Marine Corps. Welcome. It's your turn.
Well, thanks, Dave. Do you mind if I stand?
You do whatever you want to do.
I feel like I'm...
I've paneled with this guy before. He can't sit for the whole time. We should forewarn you.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you all, and thank you, General Wood and Mr. Snyder, for the opportunity to address the audience, and thank you for AFCEA for all you do. I'm going to touch on a few things that we in the Marine Corps think are important right now, and then tell you a little bit of what we're doing at the operational and tactical level, and then throw out some ideas where you and as industry can help us a little bit. So I want to talk about, first off, what we focus on first and foremost, and it's command and control. If the commander doesn't have the assets and the resources, the facilities, the properly trained people to accomplish a mission, then we fail. But we don't fail. So we focus first and foremost on command and control to give that commander on the ground or aboard a ship the ability to command and control. So that includes voice, video, and data from where I stand. So a couple things that we've done in the Marine Corps, which is, I was just up at Camp Pendleton yesterday, and it's called NOTAM, Networking on the Move. I talked to General Nicholson, the 1st Division commander up there, and he really likes it. He's been out in the field with it. And basically what it is, it's a vehicle with the POP suite that connects back into our Marine Corps Enterprise Network, so they have full access to email, data, C2PC, COP, voice over IP, and CIPRNet as well, and with the ability to also focus in the future on putting a coalition network in the POP suite as well. So you have a POP suite, and then you have vehicles that are scattered throughout the battlefield with the ability to tie back into the POP suite, and the POP suite ties back into our Marine Corps Enterprise Network. The Marines love it, phenomenal. I talked to the young Marines that actually operate at the NCOs. They think the world of it. General Nicholson does as well. Matter of fact, the 1st Marines came off a ship, an amphib on an LCAC, turned on the vehicle, operated the vehicle from the LCAC while they were moving from ship to shore, voice, video, and data. We've also expanded out into our light armored vehicles, where General Nicholson told me he was in an LAV and he had the ability to do voice over IP and had access to NIPRNet and CIPRNet. We haven't had that in the past. We have it now. So that's one big area. The other focus piece that I focus on daily is not just the Marines in Afghanistan or aboard the ships, but what we call our Special Purpose MAGTFs, Crisis Response Forces. Many of you probably have read a little bit about it, but basically we've got Marines based out of Spain, and then from there, the command and control piece goes from Spain to Sigonilla, Libya, Sudan, Uganda, Djibouti, and various other countries in Africa. How do they do command and control? Well, what we've helped them develop is because they have to do it rapidly, right on the ground immediately for company-sized units and below. We've worked with commercial teleports, so we have 3 scattered throughout the globe that we've contracted with, and it gives Marines the immediate ability to tie into teleport for voice, video, and data. They do not have to request permission. They do not have to fill out a satellite access request. They just tie into the teleport immediately. So that gives them immediate access to voice, video, and data. So what we focus on additionally in the Marine Corps is, when I came into the job 3.5 years ago, a couple things. I said, what are we going to do to give Marines on the ground and the commanders not just information, but knowledge? The knowledge to make decisions rapidly, aggressively, and stay ahead of the enemy. So we focus, and I know this is called information dominance, but we're trying to take it to the next level where we have knowledge dominance. So Marines have the ability. So that's where you in industry can help us a little bit, by you can help us gather the tools together to allow that Marine commander on the ground or aboard a ship or even in an aircraft the ability to make knowledgeable decisions. Not just the commander, but the PFCs on the ground. So that's what we're focusing on now in the future, knowledge dominance. In terms of JIE, the Marine Corps is big proponents of JIE. I've got 22 people working full-time in JIE. And as a matter of fact, last Tuesday, at around 2,200, we have access now to enterprise directory services. We have access to a global address list. We have the ability to do on a drop-down menu, pull up anybody's address in the global GAL, and that includes whether it's in a DISA deck, whether it's in the Navy, the Air Force, Army, Coast Guard, OSD, and foreign military leaders in the United States. We're the first service to be able to do that. So we've done it. Thank you. If any reps are out here from DISA, DISA was a big help in that, but we have now achieved the first and primary goal of Ms. Terry Takai when she stepped aboard was, I want everybody to have access to everybody else's email on a global GAL. We met that requirement. So we looked at it as it's not a requirement of where your email is, it's the ability to have access to it. And a piece of that on command and control is this, I'm just talking unclassified email. We don't fight wars on unclassified email. So stop focusing solely on unclassified email, and let's focus on CIPRNet and the TS circuits. And let's focus on our command and control combat systems that we fight with. Okay? Email is fun. You know, I like unclassified email when I get emails from my mom every day. But we don't fight wars on unclassified email. Okay? So let's focus on a more secure environment. And my personal opinion is if you go to the internet, the unclassified internet, you basically do not have, you've lost the ability to protect your information. So the more money we throw into cybersecurity, the enemy's going to figure ways around it. So let's focus on a more secure means. We made an MPLS buy this week, so we're going to start installing MPLS on our NIPRNet and CIPRNet this summer, and I'll be completed by this fall, so that's another requirement for JIE. And lastly, focus on, I just mentioned about cybersecurity and how much money we throw into that. Let's focus on command and control and building resiliency plans when you may have to possibly operate in a satellite constrained environment or you're under attack on the cyber side of the house. Let's develop resiliency plans and figure out how to do that. And how we do that is how we did it before we even had computers on our desk. So mission type orders, let the young Marines understand what you want them to accomplish, give them the resources to accomplish it. So you have centralized command, decentralized execution, command and control works all the time. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Our next panelist is Vice Admiral Ted Branch, who's the Deputy Chief of Naval Operations for Information Dominance and Director of Naval Intelligence. Ted?
Thanks. I'm going to pace too there, Kevin. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here and be able to talk to you about information dominance, Navy information dominance. I'm going to talk a little about strategy and a little about stuff. But I think the foremost point is Navy information dominance is about warfighting. And it's about recognition that information is a warfighting domain just like sea, air, land, and space. It's also recognition that information dominance warfare will be just as important to have the ability to be successful in as anti-submarine warfare or aviation or surface warfare as we go forward in the information age. Warfare in the information age. The strategy for Navy information dominance has three pillars: assured command and control, predictive battle space awareness, and integrated fires. Assured command and control, and Kevin alluded to this, means the ability of a commander to communicate his orders and his commander's intent to subordinates for him to be able to, or her, to be able to assess their carrying out of that direction and to be able to direct kinetic or non-kinetic effects to achieve the ends that we want to achieve. To do that, you have to have, as Admiral Harris said yesterday, robust and resilient, reliable, and secure communications. We'll throw affordable on that, too, in this day and age, so that commander can be assured that those messages will get passed and that assessment will be able to be complete. You have to have solid transport and solid networks to be able to do that, and we are programming in pursuit of that next generation enterprise network, or NGEN, the Consolidated Afloat Network and Enterprise Services, or CANES, as two big pieces. The ADNS, Automated Data Network System, and Navy Multiband Terminal. Together, that provides us that network and that transport, along with things like Battle Force Tactical Network and more resiliency in space, all those things that we're working towards to give us that assured command and control. Predicted battle space awareness is an area that's more than just intelligence. You know, people think about intelligence with battle space awareness, and we do have to have the in-depth knowledge of enemy capabilities and intent and disposition, but it's more than that. It also means a fundamental understanding of the environment. It means a fundamental understanding and an ability to manage the spectrum. And we have a lot of tools in our portfolio that we're going after battle space awareness. On the intel front, also in the unmanned portfolio with Triton and the Unmanned Carrier Launched Airborne Surveillance and Strike, or UCLASS system, the VTUAV, vertical takeoff unmanned aerial vehicle that has made about, I guess, 4 deployments now off our FFGs. The arrays, the IUSS arrays that we have deployed out in the world, for the physical environment, the NITES, the weather and environmental predictive and modeling systems. All that goes together to allow us to have that predictive battle space awareness and a thorough understanding of the battle space we operate in. Coming hard and fast down the path at us right now, and one of CNO's top priorities is more understanding and more ability in the spectrum area. You hear the term electromagnetic spectrum maneuver warfare, and we have a number of initiatives in conjunction with ONR that are trying to get our arms around both the technology to operate and understand and manage our signature, and also working with the fleet and ability to determine concepts of operations and exercise plans to be able to practice and develop those capabilities and a more robust understanding and application of those techniques. Finally, for integrated fires, the ability to produce kinetic or non-kinetic effects, whether it's through a network, through a wire, through the spectrum, through space, through a gun barrel, or through the warhead of a missile. The effects that we need to achieve can be brought forth in any of those areas. It involves fused sensors, targeting weapons from off-board sensors. Navy integrated fire control counter air is a great example of that. NIFCA, where we use that fused sensor picture. In the future, we'll use that fused picture with cloud computing for enhanced combat ID and very extended range engagements with our weapon systems. Other good examples of integrated fires and programs that we're working on now include the Surface Electronic Warfare Improvement Program, or CWIP, and the Ship Signals Exploitation Equipment, Increment F. All these capabilities are real today, and they're bringing capabilities to the fleet that we need in pursuit of information dominance. Finally, and probably most importantly, it's not just the widgets, it's the people that make all this work. And the information dominance core are the practitioners of information dominance warfare. I think everyone knows in here that we've taken the 5, I call them the 5 tribes, but the intel specialists, the IWs, the information warfare, IPs, information professionals, oceanography, and the space cadre, and we have coalesced those groups together into the information dominance core with the idea that we're going to change that multidisciplinary group into an interdisciplinary core. And by having cross-detailing and a defined career path and core training along the way, we intend to have that ability to innovate, that retain that depth of expertise in their specialties, but enable a breadth of experience across the information dominance portfolio and allow those different ideas to help us shake up our previous thoughts and be able to better innovate and do our warfighting mission in the future. It's an exciting time to be in information dominance in this information age, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
All right, Tim, thank you. Batting cleanup today is Rear Admiral Paul Becker, the J2, the Director of Intelligence on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, AFCEA and Naval Institute for inviting me. Like some of my fellow panelists, I've come from the Pentagon. In my first 6 months on the Joint Staff, I've discovered that's a building with 5 sides on every issue, it seems. So I appreciate the more binary world of San Diego. In prepping for today, I asked Admiral Daly, how many people does Exhibit Hall C sit? And he said, I'm not sure, but during one panel last year, it slept about 300. So don't be that guy, Becker. He reminded me, and I'll try and keep my comments from putting anyone in that state. My fellow panelists are all leaders in technologies, tools, and architectures, in addition to being great senior leaders. And tools, technologies, architectures are all means that enable info dominance to help achieve the end states of the maritime strategy, which is what this week is all about. But often overlooked in the discussion about info dominance means is info dominance ways, which we can achieve info dominance. And one of those ways is the ability to transform data and information into a weapons system. And that effectively requires a deep, penetrating understanding and awareness of the operating environment and potential adversaries. So it's no surprise that those comments reflect Admiral Branch's focus on war fighting. My badge is joint, but my blood is khaki, in that regard. To get that deep understanding involves not just the ability to collect and transfer large amounts of data regarding military, commercial, social, economic networks, but a deep understanding of potential adversary strategies, mindsets, and intent. And in that regard, I offer that despite our capability to collect and transfer large amounts of data on potential adversaries, we are often at an information deficit to discern what elements are most important regarding potential adversaries' strategies, mindsets, and intent in certain A2AD environments. And A2AD environments can pop up anywhere around the globe. I'll just focus for brevity on one of them during the course of my discussion, and that's the Western Pacific. Broadly, I submit that if one doesn't understand a potential adversary strategy, then one might think the adversary is conducting random acts. And to counter those random acts, we would ourselves conduct random responses. So how many within the broader U.S. intelligence community, how many within the information dominance core truly understand China's grand strategy? How many understand why the Chinese Communist Party refers to it as a grand strategy for rejuvenation by the year 2050? Why the word rejuvenation? Why 2050? How many info dominance core or U.S. intel community members, for that matter, can describe why the dashed line is not solid? What does the Central Military Commission mean when they talk about harmonious seas? It sounds great, but to reflect upon the comments from General Allen and Admiral Stavridis yesterday, if we need to engage in meaningful dialogue, we need to do it on our terms, following study and reflection, of that problem set. What are Chinese core interests? What is informatization? If the Nanjing Military Region Commander talks about preparing to conduct deterrent actions, deterrence means one thing to us. In the Chinese lexicon, it could mean kinetics, not acts of war, but high-order coercive diplomacy. I won't go on, but if these and other topics like this interest you, I urge you to attend the panel later in the conference tomorrow, led by Admiral Fogo, but containing some of the preeminent minds in the info dominance core and beyond that will talk about what about China. Now, there are prescriptive ways we can overcome this information deficit in order to bolster the ways in which information dominance can help achieve the desired end states of our maritime strategy. And one of them that I offer is applying the best practices from counterinsurgency in Southwest Asia to A2AD scenarios anywhere around the globe. In the past 12 years, roughly since 9/11, I've spent 5 of them in the CENTCOM AOR, 5 of them in the PACOM AOR, and 2 of them in Washington. And I think there's direct applicability from COIN lessons learned in Southwest Asia to A2AD environments in the Western Pacific or anywhere else. And the two key lessons that I learned along the way is that COIN is not about fighting an enemy's forces. It's about fighting an enemy's strategy. And that has direct application to any A2AD environment. And also, COIN was not a problem with a military solution. It took a sophisticated understanding and use of all levers to gain movement and momentum against the enemy's strategy. And in Southwest Asia, it may have been levering ethnic and tribal ties, but in A2AD environments, that could mean levering political, social, regional, supply chain economics as well. Along the way, I've served with some remarkable leaders. Many of you are sitting in the room here today. Probably the most remarkable was General Stan McChrystal. And in the summer of 2009, I was part of a team that went out to Afghanistan on his staff. I save his commander's intent, and I reflect on it from June of 2009. And I think there's direct applicability to some of the ends that we're trying to achieve with the Maritime Strategy. To just cite a sentence or two from it, the outcome will be determined by our capability to understand and act with precision. I ask you to challenge conventional wisdom and abandon practices that are ingrained into many military cultures. I asked you to challenge me to do the same. Along those lines, I believe that former CNO Roughhead got it exactly right when he challenged conventional wisdom and established an information dominance core. I believe that it's critical that we develop the tools, the technologies, the architectures, the means to enable the ends. And I believe that we must never overlook the criticality of the traditional practices of analysis that is the bedrock of the information dominance core, and that is to obtain a penetrating and deep understanding and awareness of potential adversary strategies, mindset, and intent. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Paul. So we're going to give you a couple more minutes to submit your questions. And in the meantime, we'll have a little conversation up here. In my opening remarks, I talked about this, I'll say, unquenchable thirst of those that we serve for what's new and what's possible. The power of cloud computing, mobility, unified comms, 3D rendering, all these things that are making the world a dramatically better place. And yet you are faced with the conundrum, each of you, of having to deal with that demand signal while also dealing with the ever-increasing threats of cybersecurity. Can you talk a little bit about how you're working those issues together? This is where the jump ball happens.
Okay. I'll dive in on that one. You're exactly right. Our operators see items all over the place, and again, industry's out there showing them to them and want them to bring them to the table as quickly as possible. Their appetites are as much as our kids are for the newest iPhone or the latest Android that's out there, and we're trying to take and integrate this in. But you bring up that security architecture and the need to be able to integrate them into that. And that's where the challenge comes in, because we have not become agile enough to be able to handle this. Some of it is the agility in our procurement processes. That holds us back as well. And what that some of the side effects of that is instead of being able to maintain a standardized architecture, people move around the other side of it, and the next thing I know, I've got something showing up on host-based security system of somebody who just attached something to our network. So it's a combination of we've got to get faster. We need different tools in terms of procurement mechanisms such that we can get these things fast enough to satiate that demand. And then we've got to get the standards put into place such that we can buy those commercial off-the-shelf pieces and easily plug them in. So it's a constant challenge with the pace of change in an industry where you're getting a new device every 6 months versus an acquisition cycle which takes 2 years to buy that device.
I'll take a stab at that too. One of the things we've done in the last several months is empower our Information Technology Systems Command, SPAWAR, here in San Diego, as the Navy's single information technology technical authority. And under that hat, that allows them to work with the shore-based users with InGen or the afloat users with canes and decide what is the optimum path to get at internet-enabled solutions or the future and the new mobility capabilities that we're all after, or even cloud computing, which we're going to prototype with ONR and Navy Tactical Cloud in FY16. So by having that empowerment of SPAWAR to work the technical standards and be the technical authority, we have a facility at least to plug in and decide what is the best path ahead to leverage those new technologies.
We're also going to have to ask some hard questions about, so you've told me what you want. Now tell me what you're ready to give up. And that's going to be a bit harder culturally. That's a cultural issue more than it is a technical issue. But I'll follow up on two comments that Paul and Bob made. Bob talked about we're not integrating well. You know, we talk about mobility as a system. We'll talk about, you know, the virtual desktop as a system. We really do need to, and this is what Paul said, figure out how we integrate. And you'll notice he didn't say we had a lack of data. We have a lack of information. We have an overwhelming amount of data that doesn't do us very well. So at the same time we're integrating the systems like mobility with the desktop and how does that work, we've got to integrate the outputs of that. And we are going to have to focus on the data. We've got to understand the value of our data from all aspects, what it costs, what does it actually deliver, how much do I really want to protect it, what's the value if I lose it, what's the value if I protect it. Haven't reached that point where we're in balance about how we ask all of those questions. And as we move forward, it's trite to say it's all about the data, but it is really about the understanding of the data. What data needs to move at what speed? And we'll spend time and we'll put data on valuable network bandwidth. We'll move it fast. You know what? Maybe that data didn't need to move that fast. It needs to go to an alternate path. This data, which is a little bit different from what we thought in the past, because we've got to change the way we look at warfare. It is more about knowledge warfare, knowledge dominance. That has to be the new priority of movement, too. So we've got to get all of that in balance as we move forward and constantly remember that we are going to be in a declining resource environment.
Anybody else want in on? Okay. So to follow up on Terry's point, I mean, number one, you know, we're sitting collectively on treasure troves of data, and being that kind of agile organization that can do the sort of best practice of industry about how you figure out how to use that data is crucial. You also touched on the financial constraints, and there is no doubt that we're going to live in a continuing constrained financial environment, and comptrollers are holding tight reins on the purse strings. And so I'm wondering if you want to talk a little bit about what are your priorities for the IT spends of your organization, particularly given the sort of, I'll say, double-edged sword that you face, where IT is viewed, fortunately, as a critical enabler, but it's also often viewed as a bill payer when times get tough financially.
So let me start there, because I think everybody, again, to my right, will tell you what better they need to focus the priorities on. But I do think we've got to recognize a couple things. Whether we like it or not, and it is not a clean break, there's what I'm going to call business IT and operational IT. We spend a lot of money on business IT. Amen. That has to come down. We have got to take, and that's the place where we need to be risk. That's going to mean breaking some culture barriers to say, you know what, I got that you have your own personnel system and they're all different. You know what, personnel actually has a pretty good set of standards that apply across everybody. We're going to have to make some hard decisions to say, you know what, we're going to live with that one system. We're going to collapse the rest of it. What are the applications that we can do without? I think you'll have to do that in the warfare area at a certain point, but I think we've got ripe ground in the business area to start saying, where do you collapse that so you can take that money and give it to spend for all the things everybody else is going to talk about? That means being, frankly, very ruthless on the business side. So, you know, my message to industry, if you're on the business side, we've got to get ruthless with that. We've got to ask very hard questions about what do you bring me? And in some cases, it means saying, you know what I have today, though it's not brand new and it's not going to do everything that I want, it's doing the mission minimums that I need, and it's doing it at a pretty good price. So leave that alone and go on to where that next area, particularly in the business, that makes you the next leap ahead, and that next leap ahead has to have a component about lowering the cost So again, you can do meet all of the requirements we're hearing all of the warfighters talk about.
Yeah, great. Bob?
Dave, we focus on what the commander's requirements are to meet his or her command and control requirements. And we first look at it, is it a requirement? Okay, we got the requirements. Is it a need or is it a want? So if it's a want in this budget constrained environment, kind of push that to the side. If it's a valid requirement, then what we look at is can we make it smaller, lighter, possibly solar powered? Because we have to take a look into the weight of what a combat Marine carries into combat. So if you use the analogy of the combat pack, if you're going to add something in the pack, something's got to come out. So if we can put more tools in the pack like food, water, ammunition, and take the batteries out and use solar batteries, smaller handheld device, so that Marine on the ground in a combat fight is able to carry the equipment required to kill the enemy. So we're not a business, we're a warfighting organization. That's what we focus on, that's what I focus on. And 2/3 of the Marine Corps budget is spent on operational and tactical requirements. 1/3 is spent on the enterprise. So my focus is first and foremost on supporting those Marines in a combat environment or humanitarian assistance, disaster relief environment, of which we did very well recently here in the Philippines with JTF 505 out of Okinawa, and General Paul Kennedy, a good friend of mine, did a superb job over there.
Excellent. Anybody else? All right. The moment is yours now. Let's hear our first question from the audience.
Thank you, sir. First question, could you please define information dominance and can it really be achieved?
So this is, again, jump balls. You can all feel free to weigh in. You all have great opinions. Everybody doesn't have to feel like they have to answer every question, but dive right in.
Okay, well, I'll take a swing at it. As we said, information dominance is a warfighting domain. Navy information dominance is about warfighting, and it's analogous to sea, air, land, and space, and it will be practiced by the Information Dominance Corps. 3 pillars of the strategy, 3 components of information dominance are assured command and control, battle space awareness, and integrated fires. As we go down the path, both in our thought processes and in our hardware and our tactics, techniques, and procedures, we're looking to achieve those 3 pillars of information dominance and grow that capability as a warfighting specialty.
Concur. Said in other ways, and I think that's what we'd all do is just say it in other ways. Information dominance provides a commander the knowledge he needs or she needs to create decisive effects in any environment.
Next question.
How have you had to balance your service's identity with ongoing DoD efforts to move to a joint information environment?
Okay, well, I think, a little bit question, so I'm going to give my answer to that question. If you're asking how we have had to change some of the services architecture so that we can get to a joint security architecture, there are some technical things that we've had to do. There's some redistributing of money, but we'll go back to what Kevin said earlier. I think that's the right answer, is that we balance the architecture changes so that we deliver the capability and not focus so much on prescriptive solutions to each of the services. Each of the services right now are in a different cyber IT environment. There are different considerations on how they move forward to that joint security architecture. We all need to get there, no argument. I think the fact that in the joint security architecture we had some good standards to move to. All of us are now using the same security pool. We're all using DEERS as our basis. We're all using that update. That allows us to get to things like a truly common GAL. The Navy will be on a completely common GAL by the end of February. The Army and the Air Force, if they're on DEE, have a common GAL. That gives us all the same capabilities. So I think the answer is work around the standards, let each of the services look at their architecture, hold them harsh lines to making the standards meet, but we are going to have some flexibility in what the prescribed solution is to meet the answer to that within the services.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody's given up an identity. This is a federated approach as we're moving this. This isn't Big Bang Theory where we're going to go all of a sudden this thing's just going to drop into place. It's not. It's too expensive. It's going to take time, and we're going to have to federate. And so those services and those architectures, we can generally move our service backbones towards them and meet those objectives. And over time, these things will start blending together. Defense enterprise email is just a perfect example of that, is that we're moving there, and bit by bit, but there's concerns and constraints that the Navy and the Marine Corps were working on. I mean, how do you do centralized email, DEE, to a cutter that's operating in the Arctic with a 512 kilobit KU pipe to it? Centralized services don't necessarily play out very well there, so we're slowly figuring out how to make these things work. It's really not changing our identity, and the core pieces is the differences across the service in terms of operational impact. We have to take that into account, and it's not going to change their identity. And if you try and change that identity, you're changing the specialty and the capabilities of that individual service. So I don't see an identity change. I see us federating under this approach and taking advantage in many cases of the capabilities that JIE is going to bring to us.
Yeah, the Marine Corps has not given up any identity. We are at usmc.mil, and for the foreseeable future, we are going to stay at usmc.mil because we met the requirement to have access to a global address list. All services, to include OSD and foreign military leaders working in the United States that have an unclassified email account. We met that requirement. We're taking now that we're out of NMCI, we try not to use that term anymore. It's the government-owned, government-operated network for the Marine Corps Enterprise Network, little different model than the Navy went with. We basically are paying for labor, not the service, so we are in the position of telling the contractors what to do and without asking for permission. It's working out real well. HP won the contract. It's working out. Couldn't ask. You basically saw inside the Marine Corps no change from NMCI to a government-owned, government-operated environment. So that's to all the Marines, civilians, and contractors that work at part of the Marine Corps Enterprise Network. So we're taking, we call it the Marine Corps Enterprise Network Unification Plan. We briefed it to the DoD CIO, Cybercom, Joint Staff about a year or so ago. Mr. Kai thought it's a great plan, supports the JIE. It's a way to move out toward the JIE. So we're taking our 5 major unclassified networks, collapsing them into one. It's not going to happen overnight, but we're in the process of doing that now. And if you just look at the engineers drew out the architecture for me, and we put it up in my conference room. It literally took up about 2/3 of the conference room. So we've got the McSen, to include the NIPR and SIPRNet, mapped out down to the base posts and stations and virtually into the comm closets. So if you look at the as-is and then the to-be, even if you don't have an IT background, you look at it and you look at the bottom chart and you just go, wow, that's a lot less IT, a lot more secure, less labor, easier to defend. So that's our approach to the JIE right now, the big picture approach, and that's the model we're taking to support the JIE.
All right, next question from the audience.
The strategy and requirements for operating at sea in the Western Pacific demand a world-class dominant capability, yet our shipboard IT systems and networks have received less attention than other capabilities since 9/11. How do we close the gap?
That's yours.
Yeah, we're closing the gap with Consolidated Afloat Network Enterprise Services, CANES, and ADNS, the Automated Data Network System, and Navy Multiband Terminal, as discussed. That's a process. It's not going to happen overnight, but those installs are happening. McCampbell in the Western Pacific was the first ship to complete their CANES install with ADNS and Navy Multiband Terminal. It's been very successful. Like any program, we have learning to be done. We're putting that CANES install on force level ships now with Eisenhower and John C. Stennis are the first 2 force level ships. WASP soon to follow for the Marine Corps. So as we make that transition from ISNS to CANES, we're going to significantly close that gap for assured command and control.
Great. Next question.
This question is for Rear Admiral Becker. Can you please explain further what you mean by information deficit? We normally hear about information overload.
Yeah, I think there's a data overload. There's a hierarchy, of bits, data to information. And then when something's done with that information, it becomes knowledge. At least that's the hierarchy, that I've aspired to, based on senior, guidance over the years. So that's a long answer to a short question. Data overload. Information is taking that data and making the most sense of something to help a commander achieve their desired effects. And whether that's deep knowledge of a potential adversary strategy, or whether it's about the bathymetry, for undersea warfare, or whether it's about the maneuverability of space-based systems, or whether it's just understanding the historic patterns of these nuclear-powered submarines in these waters. That's boiling down the data, to get it to information, and understanding that comprehensively, seeing the movie instead of just the snapshot, of the little bit of data.
All right. Next question.
Every discussion of strategy highlights the importance of coalition forces and transparency in our combined command and control. How are we watching this concern as we engineer for support to a new maritime strategy?
So I think a couple things on that. One of the things that does happen, and I would tell you, I think there's I think Randy Cieslak from PACOM is still around. As we look at building the new strategies, one of the things that is key and must be addressed, everyone, is how is it going to work with the coalitions? How are we making the new strategy to include the equipment and the systems affordable, maybe not only U.S., in many cases, not only U.S. systems, so that we're not only buying them in from an economic standpoint, but we're buying them in from a trust standpoint. So in every case, every system that we look at, every strategy that comes up, and I see all of the strategies in my position that we're looking at, has a piece that discusses how is that going to work with the coalitions, have we addressed the coalition issues, and have we addressed the different coalition issues, because you have different coalitions issues in Europe and the Pacific, and how are we making sure that we have done that? It is a key question. We don't have all the answers yet, but I will tell you it's one that we are spending lots of time on as we build the strategies.
JIE Increment 2 is going to be in the Pacific, and it's the Navy's going to have a major role in the rollout of JIE Increment 2, and it's very much involved with the partnering of our friends and allies in the region, and how they will plug into the network and be able to communicate with us. It goes to identity and access management. It goes to single security architecture. All those factors are involved, but suffice it to say that that's high on the priority list, certainly for the Pacific Fleet Commander and the Pacific Command Commander and their staffs as we move forward in the Western Pacific.
Yeah, and it also goes to interaction for a DISCA response with state, local, federal, and even commercial partners and how you do that. And we've got to keep that piece in the equation as the responses of the many different scenarios, hurricanes, things of that nature that the entire forces of the United States do respond to.
All right. We have another question?
Yes, we do. Although we don't fight on NIPR, we supply and maintain much of the workforce over NIPR. How are we protecting that information?
That's classified. Can't tell you how we do it. I'm serious. I mean, we do it. We make mistakes. We have spillages. But we have tactics, techniques, and procedures to do that. We have we do it.
This is probably the one area, though, where I do think we have to open up dialogue with industry, because one of the things, and you mentioned the supply and logistics, we have to talk with non-DoD pieces when we're in that game. We have to liaison with the people who provide us the parts. Medical is spread out over everybody. So one of the things that I think we have to start having a dialogue about is, how do we all start protecting that data better? And one of the questions that I will get all the time is, what keeps you up at night? And I will tell you, one of the things that does keep me up at night is, what are you all doing to protect your data that I have to use, that Twig has to use, that Kevin has to use, that's sitting in your databases and your data storage areas? So I do think we have to have a better national conversation on how do we, as a whole, strategically protect, capture, and do the evaluation of the value of that unclassified data.
Yeah, because it's been proven time and time again over the last several years that that's our weakest link right there. And it's one we demand on each and every day, but we've got to figure this one out because it is our Achilles heel, has been demonstrated numerous times.
Yeah, very good. All right, another question?
Could you please address the impact of ICITE on achieving information dominance in the maritime environment?
ICITE is an Intel community info technology enterprise. The goal is efficiency and consolidation, cloud-like architecture, as services have as well. Specifically as it pertains to the maritime environment, that is not the immediate goal of ICITE. It's first to bring together the many pieces of the Intel community, and the Navy will benefit, combatant commands will benefit, individual components will benefit in time. But right now, ICITE is initially focusing on consolidating at the top secret SCI level, at the JWICS level. So in the maritime domain environment, it will not have a quick and immediate impact because not every ship has that level of communications. But the goal is to get it to theater and fleet level command and control nodes first, and then in increments develop it down to the GenSur level for the sharing of information.
Let's do two more questions, and then we'll give each of our panelists a moment or two to wrap up with some final thoughts. We have two more?
Yes, we do. First one, what impact does the existing acquisitions process have on our ability to introduce the technology we need quickly and within budget?
Okay, so I don't think it's a secret. I don't like to put all this problem on the acquisition community. I think there's some better things we need to do, and we've talked about how we define the requirements, how we work the trade space from all of us that have to set requirements. That said, I think there's a pretty widespread understanding we have got to somehow alter the IT acquisition process to address the speed at which IT changes and the innovation comes in. I know that in the case of the Department of Navy, it is an issue that Secretary Stackley is looking at. How do we do that? And the balance, again, is how do you do that without throwing out the protections that are required by law, Congress? How do we do that out without making sure we don't tamper with the fairness approaches that are in there? It's going to take us some more time to do that, but we have to figure out some ways to be able to respond and write the IT acquisitions, get them out faster and get them processed faster so that we are more agile. I think if that is certainly right now one of our big challenges is how do we get more agile across the acquisition process for IT.
Mm-hmm. Just a thought, and it's not my thought, it's Mike Connor's thought from breakfast this morning, but we have to get to the mindset, I think, where if a new innovation appears in the course of our too long acquisition process, it's not viewed as a failure on the part of the program managers to insert something new into that program. We have to get the agility we need to find that new widget, idea, innovation, and be able somehow to get it into the program and not be viewed as we should have thought of it earlier, or it has messed up the program. I think that'll be a key to success. Thanks, Mike.
Great. All right, one more question.
What commercial cloud and mobile capabilities are you planning to adopt in your respective services in 2014?
The ones that meet the mission and security at the cheapest cost.
I'm not part of an individual service representing the Joint Staff, so no input on that one.
We're working with ONR first to implement Navy Tactical Cloud. We're going to prototype that in 2016. I think we'll learn from there. We also have some wireless initiatives, some pilots underway in the Navy, leveraging wireless technology and tablets for sailors, both to do their job and to use for morale purposes. I know we've had some electronic kneeboard type applications with tablets and pads for use in the cockpit. So we're moving down that path. But as Terry says, the security implications of that is a difficult area for us to tackle. We're working it, but it's tough.
And we're continuing to build out our private cloud in Kansas City, Missouri. Senator McCaskill really likes that idea. I mean, we're making a commitment to stay out there 15 to 30 years. We've already moved, as of last week, 16 programs from Dissidex into McKeats. So that's our federated. Then we're going to do, next couple years, move it to a distributed environment out to our MAGTF IT support centers, the 8 we have located throughout the world. And then from those, we'll have a deployed version so the Marines can take it aboard ships or deployments with the special purpose MAGTF crisis response.
And for mobility, I'll continue to expand upon our good link environment and add new capabilities to that, including eFlight Book, which we've been working with the Air Force on to provide Coast Guard pilots, iPads with email, as well as all their flight planning capability. From a data center standpoint, 2-year project to move our financial systems to a shared service provider. This is going to be a massive cultural effort in the United States Coast Guard, probably one of the largest things that's ever been done in the last probably 2 decades, because it's going to require business process change, which is going to be the hard part about this. The technology is going to be a piece of cake. It's the business process change that's going to be hard.
Very good. All right, we're going to start down at the end with Paul, and we're going to work our way back down to Terry and say, as we close out the panel today, there are a lot of hands and feet in the audience, people that can make a difference, and I'm wondering if you could share with them what you would like them to focus their time and attention on in the year ahead to help you achieve your goals.
Unpredictability, will be the norm. Strategy, does not involve eliminating all risk. It's just having a good plan, on how to respond when the unexpected arrives. There's not a unique joint staff aspect to information dominance. We're an advocate for the combatant commands. We're an advocate for the individual services. So we're a partner in all things information dominance. Thank you.
I have a couple of thoughts and then a request. The first thought is cyber does not equal information dominance. Cyber, people it just kind of rolls off the tongue. Cyber and cyber warfare and cyberspace and all the rest. Information dominance includes cyber. It also includes intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, communications, networks, meteorology, space, electronic warfare. So my point there is cyber is a component of information dominance. It's not a one-trick pony. We're working hard to make information dominance warfighters credible. We won't get there until we are credible with what I'll call more classic operational kinetic kind of warfighters like I used to be. That's a journey, and we're not going to get there overnight, but the goal will be to have that strike group commander or numbered fleet commander or joint force commander look to the information dominance expert to bring the kind of effects in that we need to achieve to fight and win in the information age of warfare. Okay, so that's the soapbox piece. On the what you can do for me piece, we have to have open architecture solutions. We have to have common standards. I know the common standards is our part of the equation, and we're working hard to determine that. Sometimes it's Navy, sometimes it's other agencies, but that's a key piece of the puzzle. We also need your good ideas. Above all else, probably, we need your good ideas. And the toughest thing we have to do in information dominance with assured command and control is a day without space or a satellite-denied, satellite-degraded environment. And we need your help in tackling that issue and determining an affordable, workable way ahead for that warfighting. Thanks.
Thank you.
First, I'd like to again thank AFCEA. I think you all have a fantastic organization. I've learned a lot from you, so I appreciate it very much. To the gentleman sitting out here at this table here, thank you to industry. I wouldn't know what I know without your all's help and your all's patience. I do like dealing with you. I like learning from you. You all have a lot of great ideas, and I know your heart and soul is not just in making a buck, but helping America maintain its defense. I'd also lastly like to put one last pitch in for AFCEA's STEM program. We need to support that because our children, our future, they need a science, technology, engineering, or mathematical background in order to stay ahead of the rest of the world for our freedoms. And that's very, very important to me. I'm glad to be a part of the program, and I look forward to the ride this summer. Thank you.
Bob? This is my 10th AFCEA West, and it will be my last one in uniform. I just echo Kevin's comments. These forums, even though we're in tight budget times and travel problems and everything like that in terms of getting the resources, this is where we have these dialogues and take advantage of every single one of them. I've tried to make every single one possible, particularly back in DC over the last 5 years, to have that exchange. You're not going to all get office calls, so this is where we make those office calls to be able to have those discussions, to bring forth your good ideas, as well as us to be transparent with our requirements. So if I could say anything, leverage this forum, whether it's at the chapter level, at the other show level, let's leverage that to continue this discussion. And thanks to all of you for your support over the last 35 years. So thank you very much.
Terry?
So first thing I want to do is we are going to lose in the uniform a valuable partner. Bob is one of our best, so I don't think it would be inappropriate to give Bob a round of applause for all that he has done for all of us. We have to work more with industry, and I want to follow up with another comment. Bob talked about the business process, and some of you in industry have heard me challenge you with this before. You're all really good at the technical solution sets. A lot of our challenges don't have as much to do with the technical side as they do with understanding the process side. So I will tell you again, the industries I think that are going to succeed are the industries that can bring us a combined solution that understand, whether it's the warfare process or a pure business process, they can tell us what changes do you have to make in the whole system, the technical, the processing, and the manpower. Twig has mentioned manpower 2 times. It is one of our key things that we have to invest in. I will tell you, I see a little bit of a trend in industry to have less understanding about the DOD, the Don, and the Coast Guard processes. I think you need to invest some time in educating your workforce or buying a workforce that understands more about our processes so you can help us integrate the solutions. I think you have to do that. I think Twig made another good comment. Cyber is not information dominance. Information dominance is a warfare area that has got to use all of the warfare areas. And I think one of the new sub-areas of warfare inside cyber, and I don't know if it's economic cyber or cyber economics, but if you'll buy that our current biggest crisis to the country and our security risk is the national debt, or maybe better said, the national debt and economic disruption. Cyber gives us the opportunity to both protect and influence economics more widely than almost any other warfare area. It also gives our threat the opportunity to do that too. So I think a study about how cyber, and we're getting to see some practical studies of that with some of the things that's happened, like the Target issue. Had that been maybe 10% bigger, it would have sent a much bigger shock through the U.S. economic system. We've got to make sure that we're considering cyber in that area and that we understand the economic implications, both how it helps us maybe lower the debt, but how it also gives us the ability to protect and defend against economic disruptions, because that's probably the newest warfare sub-area that we've really got to study hard.
Yeah. I said in my opening remarks that it was an honor to be up here on stage with such a dedicated group of professionals, and I mean that sincerely. These are true thought leaders, each one of them working really hard on your behalf every day to make a difference and making great strides in helping us to effectively manage information in a contested environment. So would you join me this morning in thanking each of our panelists for taking the time to chat with you today?
Thank you, Dave. Well, they certainly deserve our thanks. Today is a morning that started wonderfully well. This is as much about the conversation as it is about the education. We heard some wonderful testimonials to the fact that this is an important interchange, and it's fundamental certainly to AFCEA, but I would add as well, we are wonderfully partnered with USNI in this event. And for years, this has been a premier event on the West Coast focused on a variety of challenges as they evolve. And they're evolving now in the strategy, as you heard today. And we're documenting all of it. In fact, we have the ability in our current Signal magazine online show daily. I would suggest if you missed anything or you wanted to catch up on what was said today, you could go to www.afcea.org/signal, and you'll have already the content presented in a way that is not only available to you, but you could transmit to those that you'd like to suggest this education. On that theme, the education units, there are in fact one continuing education unit available to those of you who are here today. As you pass out, you can have your badges scanned, and this is worth a credit. It's worth an opportunity, and it's not just a morning session. This is education, and we thank so much, Dave, for what you've done in putting this panel together and sparking this conversation. And to each of our panelists, thank you so much for your thoughts and your perspectives from so many years of watching this lane and concerning yourself with our national security. I would like to offer to you a small gift as you depart. It's a book that comes from USNI's press, The Battle of Midway, the Naval Institute Guide to the U.S. Navy's Greatest Victory. And certainly that was a great victory, but we face challenges ahead, and with leadership like we have on the stage, I look forward to victory in our battles ahead. In it, you will also find a AFCEA bookmark to keep track of what you're reading, but I want to add one more thing to this gift presentation, and that's to Mr. Winogren. Dave, we have for you the Copernicus Award. This was established by Admiral Zabrowski years ago to look at this area of command and control and look at key leaders who have advanced the practice, frankly, the art of command and control in our forces. You with your background and just as a small foray today, we understand that you are a leader, you understand this space, and you're taking us forward into the future in a way that we all admire. So on behalf of USNI with AFCEA, I'd like to present the Copernicus Award to you that sets you apart in a leader in this field. Thank you very much.